We'll start with the team that was right in our backyard on Sunday afternoon, right by the lake. Obviously, the Browns defeating the Niners, led by PJ Walker, 19-17. And as I had said last Tuesday on Championship Rings, we did not know if Deshaun Watson was going to play or not. But I said, don't be surprised if the Browns pull off the upset, because that defense matches exactly personnel for personnel. They are a good mismatch for San Francisco. And look what happened, even though it obviously came down to a missed field goal. Go ahead and take the floor.
Yeah. I'll say this. When I was doing my video collaboration with CJ Ruthless last week, he's a major 49ers fan, I predicted that the Browns would lose 31-17. Just because I'm a Browns fan doesn't mean I'm going to pick them to win every single game. I'm a very objective fan. If I don't think the Browns are going to win a game, then I'm not going to pick them. And when I looked at San Francisco, they were coming off of this huge win against the Dallas Cowboys, and they were coming into Cleveland, and I'm like, okay, the 49ers, they're the best team in the NFL. They have the leading candidate in MVP with Christian McCaffrey. Of course, you felt like it was Brock Purdy, but we agreed that the leading candidate was a player from the San Francisco 49ers. But still, and it just felt like San Francisco had all the momentum, while the Browns, they were coming off of their bye week, but the week before, they had this huge opportunity against the Baltimore Ravens, and they fell flat on their face. Granted, part of that was because Dorian Thompson-Robinson ended up starting instead of Deshaun Watson. But for the Browns to come out and play the way they did, it was an emphatic statement. I wonder if Deshaun Watson had been healthy for that Baltimore game, I think we would have beat the Ravens. But when I look at this 49ers game, because that's obviously the topic at hand, did injuries have a part in it? Yes. Christian McCaffrey got injured. Deebo Samuel got injured. Trent Williams, arguably the best left tackle in the NFL right now, got injured. Were there some controversial calls by the referees in this game? Yes. But guess what? There are controversial calls and no calls by the referees in just about every game. I mean, there are countless examples. I could look at the non-holding call in last year's Super Bowl. I could look at the pass interference call, or the non-pass interference call, I should say, in the Chiefs-Jets game a couple weeks ago. And there are countless other examples I could point to. So in this case, I'm like, yeah, there were some non-calls and there were some calls that were questionable, but it doesn't matter. You still have to go out and make the plays that you need to. Get that defense to stand. If you throw an interception, can your defense come back and hold up? And the Browns were able to make the plays, and the 49ers were not.
So, up until the decision that Kevin Stefanski made, which was to punt the ball on 4th and 1, that led to the next Brown series, that led to the PJ Walker interception that almost completely turned the game around. Up until that point, I thought that was the best coached game and the best game plan Kevin Stefanski had ever had as the Browns head coach. Quick, short passes, get the ball out, run game, screen, get the ball out of Walker's hands, move, short chain, up and down the field, possess the football. And then obviously the Browns almost blew it at the end. And I agree with you on the missed calls. I talked about today on Brandon's World. The NFL officiating this weekend and throughout the season has been the worst officiating in the NFL probably in its history, when it comes to how many calls they made and then how many non-calls they have not made that have altered games and potentially have altered seasons. But my biggest takeaway from this is, and I would give you the Trent Williams injury. However, Trent Williams came back in the ball game, so I'm not giving you the Trent Williams injury. Oh, Brock Purdy lost a running back. Oh, he lost his wide back. Gee, I don't know. You still had Brandon Ayuk out there. You still had George Kittle out there. You still have one of the most talented offenses in the league out there. And Brock Purdy cannot complete a pass barely in that sloppy weather. He played terrible. And by the way, it's what I said last Tuesday right here on Championship Rings. If you blitz Brock Purdy, if you make him uncomfortable, he is not a very good quarterback. He is an average quarterback that gets elevated by the play around him. He's not special. He's very good that can make big plays in big moments for a very good football team. But when you put pressure on Brock Purdy, when you rattle him, when the conditions are not right, he's not very good. And that's what the Browns did on Sunday. And I give big time credit to the defensive coordinator of the Browns, Jim Schwartz. Unfortunately, the Browns offense is not up to par, or the Browns will literally be a Super Bowl contender because they have a Super Bowl caliber defense. I don't think it's an understatement to say the Browns defense may be the best defense we have seen since the Legion of Boom at all three levels. Great defensive line, great secondary. Linebackers in today's NFL are good / adequate enough. And the Browns, even though, again, yes, they did get some calls, and yes, San Francisco did miss a field goal, but you know what? So did the Browns.
Exactly.
That is a momentum building game. But as we saw in other games this week, and there were upsets all around the NFL this week, we're not going to pretend like that there wasn't. You're only as good as your next game. So, San Francisco has Minnesota on Monday night. I expect them to bounce back. They'll probably win big against Minnesota. So overall, if I'm a Niners fan, I'm not that concerned, but it is exactly the way I thought that game would go. It would come down to a Brock Purdy game. And I'm sorry if you're whining about losing a wide back who they haven't really used that well all season long, and a running back when you have plenty of other running backs. And I don't care what you say about Christian McCaffrey being the MVP. It is the least valuable position in the NFL by far, called running back. Like I keep saying, if you need a running back to win games, you don't have a very good team.
Okay, so I agree with a lot of the points you made, not all of them. But the main thing I take away from what you said is that you think Brock Purdy is a system quarterback. Is that correct?
99% of quarterbacks are system quarterbacks. Yes, I do.
Okay, fair. And in terms of Kyle Shanahan and Jim Schwartz, you know that now. I think I saw this statistic earlier.
Schwartz is 8-1
yes.
in his career. And by the way, people are saying Jim Schwartz is going to get a head coaching job. Jim Schwartz was never a great head coach. There are really good coordinators in this league that aren't just made to be head coaches. So I would still be worried about Schwartz. I think I'll probably get interviews, but if I'm the Browns, I do a situation like Dallas has in Dan Quinn. You make him the highest paid coordinator in the league, all like Detroit did with Ben Johnson. That is the key to the Browns' success this year. We're seeing it all over the week. We can have great head coaches, but coordinators absolutely matter.
Okay, so you were talking about how the Browns offensively were doing quick passes, screens, and all the other stuff you said. It's interesting that you say that because I go back to the conversation I had last week with CG Ruthless. Again, he's a major 49ers fan. I found him on YouTube, whatever. He asked me what my 3 keys were for a Browns victory. Number 1, I said quick passes. I didn't necessarily say screens, but when I said quick passes, I meant like slants or, like a hook
slants,
route.
hook, curl, screen, get the ball out.
Yeah. Yes. And then my number 2 key was doing counter runs because we know how strong of a defensive player Nick Bosa is. So if the Browns did runs away from him, that would help to neutralize him, and that might spring a few like big runs, which I think we saw a little bit of that on Sunday. Not a ton, because the Browns did ultimately stick to their game plan of going right at the defense. But we did see a few counters, and I'm like, okay, maybe I do know what I'm talking about.
Well, from one team that lost to another, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened in this game. Everybody's saying, oh, Jalen Hurts played bad. Oh, Jalen Hurts is the fraud.
Three interceptions.
I'm going to tell you exactly what happened in this game. Exactly. Because two of them weren't his fault. And I don't know how one was even called an interception. Let's start there. The first one they called an interception, Dallas Goedert catches the ball. He turns. So that to me is a fumble. He gets the ball knocked up in the air and it lands in the hands of Quinnen Williams, a defensive lineman. When have you ever seen that? By the way, it's all when Philadelphia is up 14-3 in the ball game. The second turnover then, Jalen Hurts obviously drops back, and at this point, Lane Johnson is out of the game, and Lane Johnson is as equally as important to Philadelphia, if not more important than what Trent Williams is to San Francisco, because the Eagles have never won a game in their life practically when Lane Johnson is not out on the field. So Jack Driscoll gets beat pretty bad. Hurts gets his arm hit on a pass that was going to be wide open to A.J. Brown. Ball floats in the air, interception. If you want to say that's on Hurts, it's debatable. I say it's more on the offensive line. The third turnover, which wasn't even Jalen Hurts' ball, throws a perfect ball to DeAndre Swift. C.J. Mosley comes in with the most beautiful, perfect peanut punch I've seen in my life, puts it right on the ball, boom, ball goes up. At this point, the Eagles are still up in the game. It's 14-9. Jalen Hurts is running all over the field, making play after play after play. Hits Devontae Smith twice in the hand, and one of the surest receivers in the National Football League drops two straight passes. That leads to their only punt of the game. So at this point, yes, the final interception and the game-ending drive, that was on Hurts. He was bad, in my opinion, the last two drives of the game. You can give him 3 interceptions. Philadelphia had 4 turnovers. That's the only reason why they lost this game. The only difference between the Eagles this year and last year, they didn't turn the ball over. Josh, do you know that the Eagles actually average more yards per play, more yards per game, more points per game this year for the first 6 games? Yet everybody's saying, oh, the offense is off, this and that. The only difference is they're turning the ball over, and some of these aren't unlucky bounces. So, no, I didn't like the loss. Was I pissed off? Absolutely. Am I still pissed off? Yeah, because we should have won that game. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's a learning experience. It's good for us to know that you can't F around. And you know what? We have a great opportunity this weekend to play Miami at home, unveil our Kelly Green uniforms, and show the world why we still are the best team in the National Football League, because the only way for the Eagles to lose is to beat themselves. The Browns beat the Niners. In my opinion, the Jets did not beat the Eagles. The Eagles beat the Eagles.
Wow. All right. So, here, first thing, you don't think there's been a drop-off in the Eagles offense going from Shane Steichen, who was great with Jalen Hurts last year. He goes to Indianapolis, and they have to change to Brian Johnson, your new offensive coordinator. You don't think there's been any type of drop-off?
There's been a drop-off in terms of scoring. In terms of moving the ball, no. The drop-off is the red zone, which they were actually 2 for 2 in the red zone on Sunday. It all comes down to these fluky turnovers off tip balls and fumbles. Philadelphia has punted the least amount in the National Football League. They, like I said, they've punted the least. They have more points per game. They've scored more this year than they did for the first 6 games last year. We remember how dominant they were last year. more yards per game, more rushing yards per game. They are literally up in every single category. The only difference has been the turnovers, which Jalen Hurts is now second in the league in interceptions, but he only had 3 or 4 going into the weekend.
Okay. Here's my thing with Jalen Hurts. I think he's become a little too A.J. Brown centric. Like, it feels like, yeah, you talked about how Devontae Smith dropped a couple what should have been 2 sure-handed catches. I get it. But it feels like Jalen Hurts goes to A.J. Brown all the time. And I get it. A.J. Brown is the bigger and more physical wide receiver than Devontae. So I get it. But a big reason why the Eagles were so successful on offense last year is because you had that 1-2 punch of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. You can put them in whatever order you want. I don't think it really matters in this case. But if you watch that game on Sunday, it felt like Jalen was constantly going to A.J. Brown, and he wasn't keeping Devontae Smith engaged. That's a problem.
I think that's more the difference between Steichen and Johnson, because I think that the game plan was more towards AJ Brown. By the way, there was another deep throw early in the game that if AJ Brown keeps running, that throw wasn't on Jalen. AJ kind of stopped, and I don't know why. I think he wasn't expecting the ball with safety help over the top. Jalen put it right where it needed to be. If AJ catches that, he walks in for a touchdown. So it's a little bit off of it's a new year, it's a new identity, and I think again they're still trying to adjust to Brian Johnson is a new OC, and defenses are playing them differently. They're playing them more shallow, and the Jets offensive line, the left side of the Jets defensive line versus the right side of the Eagles offensive line, Eagles are now playing with both backup right guard and right tackle. That was where the game was won. Sounds like Wayne Johnson is going to try his best to give it a go against the Dolphins this Sunday. The injury was better than they feared. In my lifetime, since the Eagles have drafted Wayne Johnson, they're like 4-24 when Wayne Johnson doesn't play. He is the difference because he gives all protection to Jalen Hurts on that right side. My biggest thing that I've noticed with Hurts this year, and again, I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know if he's not as comfortable in the pocket because the offensive line with the backups have not been playing as well. But he's bailing out of the pocket a little bit earlier than he usually would be.
Now, I agree with you 100%. I was just going to say that same thing. Dan Orlovsky was talking about that this morning on Get Up and First Take.
Now, I do think that is correctable. I also think that that's a little bit of coaching. But I will say this, and I told you this, maybe it was on our first show or maybe it was our trial show. There is nobody in the National Football League who watches more tape, who is in the building, who grinds, who studies more than Jalen Hurts. He is in the building 20 hours a day, and it's no exaggeration that Adam logged in on the iPads that they use. So the biggest question here, we got 5 minutes left between these two topics, Eagles, Niners. Josh, you know which direction I'm going. I know you're going to try to debate me the other way on it. Obviously, there's another team in there as well with the Detroit Lions. But right now, who is the best team in the NFC? Like I said, it's not even a question for me. It's more of a question for you.
Go up to the Motor City. Jared Goff.
Wow.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams. Aiden Hutchinson. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. Dan Campbell. Yep, it is those Detroit Lions. Think about what they've done. Their only loss was in overtime against the Seattle Seahawks, who, if they actually had a freaking red zone offense, they would have beaten the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday. But the Seahawks have proven to be a pretty good team. Maybe not quite lived up to the expectations we had for them. But,
did you think? I don't know. Geno Smith. Smith.
Okay. But that point aside, think about what the Lions have done. They went into Arrowhead Stadium to open the season and beat the Chiefs. I know the Chiefs did not have Travis Kelce and they did not have Chris Jones, but still, they beat the defending Super Bowl champions on opening night in Arrowhead Stadium. They went into Green Bay and beat the Packers on Thursday Night Football. On Sunday, in a battle of first place teams, they went down to Tampa Bay and absolutely manhandled the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were in their creamsicle jerseys. Jared Goff is playing great. He is totally making me eat my words because I went back and checked the tape. Yes, I did say he would struggle at some point this season. No, he is not struggling. If you want to put Jerry Goff in the discussion for MVP, I
agree.
don't think anybody would argue with you. Amon-Ra St. Brown has played great so far. You know, they're without Jahmyr Gibbs going into the game on Sunday. They lose David Montgomery, so it's all on Jared Goff, and the Lions still whooped Tampa Bay.
Wait, you mean they won a game without a running back? Oh, Brock Purdy. Note to Brock Purdy, you don't need Christian McCaffrey. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No, oh, wait, we need Christian McCaffrey and we need Debo. We watched the Browns. That's one of the why I don't like the Niners. Every time they lose, there's always an excuse. You know what Devontae Smith said this past week? I got to catch the damn ball. Not, oh, we didn't have Wayne. You know, the Niners are, well, we would have had McCaffrey. We would have won the game. They're all excuse makers. The Lions and Eagles both are not excuse makers. The one thing that I will say on Detroit, it's why I still put them third. I think they're behind San Fran and Philly for two reasons. Number one, and it may not matter depending on the Lions schedule, but I still got to see Jared Goff below 40-degree weather on the road go win a football game because I have not seen that yet. Yeah, they beat Green Bay at the end of last year, but that Green Bay team was not very good, and the Lions did not play very good in that game. They ended up squeaking out. I think it was a 20-16 road victory. The other thing is, personnel-wise, I think that they are a year away. As good as Josh Reynolds and Jameson Williams and all their guys have been, I don't trust them when you go up against the really good teams. I think they need a second really good receiver, like San Fran and Philly both have. And I also think they don't have a great corner. Now their defense has played really well, and Aiden Hutchinson has stepped up, and they are doing very good job. They don't have the best names in the world. It's a lot like Cincinnati's defense, where they don't have a ton of names, and their guys are making a lot of good plays.
It's kind of like Cleveland's defense a little bit,
too. No, the Browns have Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Martin Emerson. I mean, those are more guys than what Detroit has.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, the most notable guys on the Browns defense are Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and Denzel Ward. Everybody else, like, you're just starting to find out about Martin Emerson, JOK.
No, I disagree because JOK was almost rookie of the year when he came in. Emerson was a very good corner. Newsom's always been a very good corner. He was up for rookie of the year.
What about Grant Delpit, for example? Sione Taki.
Yeah, I agree with you on Taki. Delpit, I think the only reason why he hasn't played as much is because he's been hurt, his whole NFL career. Regardless, I think the Lions, that's where they are to me, a year away. I think they need to add one more weapon. As much as I like Laporta at tight end, I think you need one more weapon on the outside, and I think you need one defensive piece. Can they get it at the trade deadline? They can, but I think the biggest question with the Lions is going to be if they have to go to San Fran, if they have to go to Philadelphia, can they win the big game on the road? Because their biggest games outside of the Kansas City game, which again, it was week one, and I'm almost about ready to throw week one out. I mean, there's teams. I mean, the Jets beat the Bills with Zach Wilson. New England looked good. I mean, Cleveland crushed Cincinnati. We know what Cincinnati turns into at the end of the year. We know week one is always strange. So I don't know. Football is very, very strange right now, in my opinion. Last week was one of the strangest weeks I've ever seen personally. I mean, who would have thought the Giants with Justin Pugh coming straight off his couch arguably should have beaten the Bills? They outplayed them for, outside of the blunder at halftime. The Giants haven't done anything all year. They almost beat Buffalo. So, I mean, Josh, it's literally any given Sunday, man.
Yeah, that's true. We are going to get a good idea of what the Lions are capable of because on Sunday they have to head to Baltimore to play Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. That's going to
More,
be
more on that game in about 10 minutes, I'm sure, from both of us.
for
Before,
sure.